the Franklin County Fiscal Court, July 16th, 2020 work session. The first item on the agenda, Lee Griffin, you're here. We've been asked to talk a little bit about business license enforcement. Squire Muller, this was something you wanted to have brought to the court. You want to begin, Squire Muller? And we have Lee on the line.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you, Judge, and thank you, Lee, for being here. I believe this is something we had talked about last year, and every year it seems to get worse and worse as far as companies that are operating and working in Franklin County with no business license, no names on the trucks, no DOT numbers. I reportedly hear people that are quote unquote getting ripped off by people, fly-by nights, things like that. So I believe we started to talk about it in the administrative code, and Rick Sparks says, that wasn't the proper place to talk about it. So I guess that's why we're talking about it here as far as what can we do. I know when we talked about it last year, Lee said we were going for the bigger fish in the sea as far as companies and things like that. So I believe she's probably got a lot of that under control. So I guess that's where we're at now as far as what can we do to make our community safer and better for all the businesses out there.
Lee, would you like to respond?
Yes, I would. The way that you're stating this, Squire Muller, it does not sound like it's something that's in the purview of the Occupational License Tax Department to ensure safety and good business practices in the community, because the occupational tax and business license system is just a revenue generating taxing license. It's not any kind of assurance on what businesses do and how their trucks are marked or who they are or what kind of business they do. So when we talk about enforcement and compliance for the occupational tax office, then primarily it is my belief that we are talking about the tax revenue that is garnered by licensing businesses, and also the assurance from planning and zoning that appropriate activities are taking place in the appropriately zoned places under their purview. Does that make sense?
Yes, I believe it does make sense, and I agree. I think you're doing a great job. So I guess, Judge, I guess we're back to what can we do as far as enforcement with our community? What are our options?
Well, there's several options, I'm sure. So let's narrow this down and kind of talk, Squire. Well, let me say this: Squire Blackburn, Squire Tracy, Sebastian Moore, and Booth. Are you all seeing these kinds of problems? And if so, what are you all doing about them? It's not just native to Squire Muller's district, I would hope, or not, that if this is countywide.
Oh, it is definitely countywide. I see it all the time. People doing construction work without a license, without proper insurance or anything, so it hurts the people they're working for if something goes wrong. And some of them use running on farm tags when they don't even have a farm or not selling farm products. They're out mowing yards or what have you, and got them a bobcat and doing bobcat work. And I'm sure it's other companies coming into town and working without getting their business license also. Other companies coming into town and working without getting their business license also.
Okay, Squire Sebastian.
I'm going to agree with what Squire Muller and Squire Moore have shared. And to add on to that, there also is a workers' comp that a lot of these folks aren't paying, and workers' comp is pretty expensive and certainly necessary to protect the owner of the property that these fly-by-night folks are going to be working for. So I would agree with them that there are issues out there. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak to it?
Yeah, Judge, I would agree with all of them. Enforcement was something that was brought up, touched on by myself, and I believe Squire Moore touched on it too several years ago. Just by making sure everyone is doing what they're supposed to do, it puts everyone on a level playing field. If there's no repercussions for not doing right, you've got some that are just going to come in and cut someone out and then leave. And something else that we're also seeing is a lot of these companies are coming in, doing work, getting paid to do the work, and then driving, finding an area that is dark or so forth, and then they're dropping and dumping everything that they're doing throughout the day, whether it be limbs or drywall, gutters, siding, whatever. I've gotten calls from that, couches. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely an issue.
Okay. Squire Blackburn, you had your hand up? Oh, you got to unmute, Squire. There you go.
Are we ready? Yeah, I have to agree with everyone here tonight. Some financial institutions have things in place where you have to list your contractor and things like that, and they're able to check to make sure they have the necessary requirements. I know when I was framing full time, I had to keep it whether or not I carried it on myself. So I think it's important to get everybody on a level playing field. It's just better business. It protects consumers from dealing with somebody that might not have their best interest at heart. And I think we're losing a lot of revenue because of it.
Yeah, well, potential. If you found 100 people per year at $40, that's $4,000, and that's not a lot of revenue. I'm not saying I'm not trying to demean what you're saying, but that's not a lot of revenue. But there,
occupational tax included. You get paid here. You pay your tax
if they would file it. But that's another. So somebody needs to cut off. Yeah, thank you. Whoever that was, thank you for taking care of that. So, the most direct route in doing something would be to hire someone to do this. Plus, then they'd have to have a vehicle. So that's a direct route. There maybe, I don't know if there is, but there's a contract service. Maybe we could find a contract service. I don't know about that one either. Squire Muller.
Thank you, Judge. I'd say at this point, I think we're all on the same page. If it'd be okay with the court, maybe I could start doing some homework on it, maybe come up with a couple options, and then we could circle back and then see what we can come up with. My other question, I guess, for Lee, if she's still on the phone, I remember last year, Rick Sparks had said something about up until you took the position, the people who did not complete their taxes, turn it in by a certain date, were to be handed over to his office. And I guess that hadn't been done in the past. Have you had a chance to do that? I know the date had changed to recently, I believe, but are we still going to be able to do that?
I have never been made aware of any process specifically that requires me to hand over any documents. I have done several rounds of enforcement efforts or compliance efforts regarding missed filings, and in general, get a little bit of return and get people updated on their compliance, but mostly in our system, there are accounts that are left open where no work is still being performed in Franklin County, and most of those ended up being closed accounts, but it did clear out enough to where I could tell better what's going on up to the current time. I actually reviewed 2017 and 18 missed filings last summer, and got response on about 80% of those to find out. So So I do have delinquencies and invoices that are pending that would require review and sometimes second notices, but I do not have a clear protocol for when something gets turned over to the county attorney or what actions would be taken after that. I do not have a clear vision of that process at all.
Okay, Rick, could I ask you to maybe step in if you remember the conversation from last year?
Yeah, your remedies are contained. Well, first of all, y'all, and with all due respect, I don't know what problem you all are describing right now, because you all have gone from monitoring work comp to being the Better Business Bureau to occupational taxes to licenses and fees. And frankly, you can chomp on it all you want to, but I'm hearing a solution, a problem in search of a solution. If you're wanting to talk about how to enforce the occupational tax amendment or ordinance, it's right there. They either pay it or they get fined, they get penalized, et cetera. It's nothing super complicated. The problem was and continues to be detection. Detection costs money, and the only thing we're enforcing is whether or not you pay your occupational tax or your occupational license, so then they can backtrack you if you didn't pay your occupational tax. This is not a consumer protection ordinance in any form or fashion.
No.
The strongest consumer protection you got is what I tell people all the time: don't pay a baker or a contractor up front, because you're going to get burnt. People who do that are that's just not a really good idea, to be writing checks to fly by nights coming to whatever reason, and bad people take advantage of people despite all the laws. That's not what this ordinance is. This ordinance is a revenue ordinance. What if that's what we're discussing is a revenue ordinance, then I ask you, what part of it's not working? If it's not working because the personnel isn't being allocated for financial reasons or shorthanded or just don't have that person, okay, well, that's easy to fix it. Then just be willing to pay for what you're going to get out of it, which requires an analysis to see what you're going to get out of it. But it's not going to stop fly-by-nighters. It's not going to stop litterers. Litterers, we already got a statute that says you go to jail for a year if you're littering. Criminals don't pay attention to it. That's kind of what they do. It's not consumer protection. So please disavow yourself in full with any delusions, not illusions, delusions that this is anything more than a revenue ordinance. If you want to make it a public safety health ordinance, et cetera, that's a whole different game, y'all. But 14/2016 is amended, which is our occupational tax ordinance, doesn't address those things in any form or fashion. It's just collect revenue, get your license, and pay your occupational tax. So knowing that, I'd kick it back and just wait for a discussion on how to address that matter. If you want to go to phase 2, the other issues, okay, we'll switch gears. But that's what you got on the table for the occupational tax license or ordinance.
Hi, Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. Is there the possibility that we could reach out to CAECO using the Magistrates and Commissioners Association and Department for Local Government to see how other counties, if they are experiencing this and how they are addressing it, whether it is through a compliance officer type staff, whether they're using the offices of the local sheriff and or some other combination of multiple staff to do that? Because I'm sure Franklin County is not the only county that's experiencing this. So if we can see what's going on maybe somewhere else and how it is working, or if it is working, maybe that would give us a great starting point to determine how we want to address this. Thank you.
Yeah, Tamara's writing that down, and we'll send that to JC and to Vince Lang to have Amy Greenwell to have the Judges Association as well as magistrates to discuss that. So Squire Muller, I think the best avenue would be we'll have a finance committee meeting. I believe that'd be an avenue to talk about that, and we'll have more discussion about some other means to pursue that through that committee.
Well, y'all,
I-
again, I'd
also
submit to you
comment.
before you assemble yet another committee, which are all well and good, that you delineate the problem that you're trying to solve. Because I'm hearing a lot of discussions where everybody's in wonderful agreement that there is a problem. What is the problem? Is it enforcement? Is it public protection? Is it consumer protection? I mean, that was quite a broad series of agreements that everybody was in agreement of, but it's awful hard to attack that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, through a committee, we can define it too as step one, step two. And once it's defined, we can start looking for solutions as well, I think. Squire Moore?
Judge, this is Lee.
Yeah, Lee.
If I could comment on some of those things as well, keeping in mind that the tax administrator's office is about tax revenue generation solely, is that there's also an occupational license association, and I was fortunate to be able to attend with statewide membership of all the tax administrators last year. We probably won't meet this year, but I did hear a lot of information regarding enforcement. That is their biggest issue. And we heard from people who did physical enforcement, and we heard from people who were trying administrative compliance solely. And so there definitely are some pitfalls with the physical enforcement insofar as it can become a cost burden that greatly exceeds the revenue it generates. And so for a revenue generating office where we are not, this office will not be enforcing any other aspect of the business and their insurance and their practices, but solely for revenue generation at this time, I don't believe that physical enforcement could even pay for that position or the vehicle that you would have to provide for them to drive around and do field work. I believe that you would have to have the county attorney proscribing the legal manner of how you would cite and fine people. They are subject in our ordinance to Class A misdemeanor charges. All that would have to be, I believe, attorney generated and not come out of the tax administrator's office without very clear protocols. Also, I believe the demeanor and the behavior of an enforcement official and their authority would have to be very carefully prescribed before you send anybody out like that. Now, in the office here, we have several tips and tricks and enforcement protocols administratively that I do on a daily basis. Corrective invoicing of people, auditing of all the net profit returns to capture additional payroll revenue is very successful. I'm in contact with businesses by mail, email, and phone all day, every day. The planning and zoning permit review process captures 10 to 20 contractors on every permit project that they pass through this office. We have reports and accounts analysis that can find deficiencies and delinquencies, and some of those are sometimes just an omission or an error by a company can result in very large dollar delinquencies that we can follow up on immediately. And unfortunately, they do have penalties and fines associated with non-timely filing. Responses to inquiries and reports. I get inquiries and reports every day by email and phone about companies, and I always follow up on those immediately by contacting companies through the internet, through email, through the phone, and by mail. I mentioned the missed filing campaign, and that will be continued every year. And yeah, I think that's it. And there were several little tricks that I learned at the Occupational License Association. For instance, the difference between sending someone a letter saying they need to do something and extrapolating what they owe and sending them an invoice. I find that to be a very effective just trick to use to get people to respond. Sometimes they don't owe me the money, but if they get an invoice, they're going to call and check with me about it, and we're going to find out what's going on. So there are a lot of little tricks. There are a lot of little databases on the internet that can help find businesses that are operating that are unlicensed. I feel like I have a good rapport with everyone I've ever contacted. I'm not you know, I'm not having any difficulty dealing with people and gaining their compliance by being super nice. And I do feel like there's a wider net that I need to cast in a couple of areas. The first line of our enforcement, I believe, is going to be dependent on us educating the public. The people who hire unlicensed individuals can be enlisted by us to be 1,000 eyes and 1,000 feet on the ground to say, why don't you just let the occupational tax administrator know you hired somebody, and if they're not licensed, she can contact them. The civilian doesn't have to be responsible for enforcement, but they can just let us know they've hired someone, and we can check the licensing and contact that person for compliance if we need to. I'd say that would bring in a lot of business license business. Also, I believe 1099 income is one of the biggest revenue pots that we need to investigate. We are supposed to receive 1099s from companies that allocate those to their employees instead of payroll, but we're not getting those. So we need to figure out how to get those from the state or the IRS or the companies and start invoicing people for the occupational taxes they owe for their 1099 income. I think that's about all I have right now.
Thank you, Lee. Squire Moore, you had your hand up first, and then Squire Sebastian after you. You need to unmute.
It muted on its own there. Okay. Lee touched on what I was going to say, but what I was going to say is there's no enforcement mechanism out there to have people buy their licenses. I know 35 years ago, I was working in Stamping Ground. I had a Scott County license. I had a Georgetown license, but I didn't know you had to have a Stamping Ground license, and their city police stopped the whole job to go get a license. It cost $15, and the office wasn't open until Wednesday. So it could be a problem too. You know, it'd be up. I don't think the sheriff wants it dumped in his lap either. I wouldn't think. So that's the problem. Is going to be enforcement of anything. And Lee had some good ideas.
If I might say, thank you, Squire Moore, but what I find when I do get reports of people working unlicensed is that when I contact them, I don't find them to be belligerent or wanting to be non-compliant. What I do find is that that this sometimes is a burden on their mind, that they do not have a license and they don't like operating that way, but it's a cumbersome process that they really just can't handle until I help them through it. And they seem to be almost to a person, relieved to know that they have their license and everything's on the square now, and that they don't have to do any filing till next year. I really try and make it easy for them, and I think that they're relieved to be able to be in compliance and not upset about it. So I don't find them to be upset about it as much.
Okay. Squire Sebastian?
Just a couple of things, Judge. Thank you. So right now, and this is just to my fellow magistrates, how are you reporting this now when you see something that you feel maybe not a licensed business or an unlicensed business doing work in Franklin County? How is that reported by you? And two, Lee, this is directly to you. You just talked about the process being very cumbersome. So how do we make that less cumbersome so that it is easy for individuals to get through, so it would be more encouraging for people to be on the up and up straight out of the gate than rather than have to be found out and then reported on? And so we're in we would constantly be in a process of catching up on that. It would seem like it, and you've described the process as cumbersome. So how do we correct that? So thank you for the two-part question.
Well, for my part, let's say I actually did have a home contract business for several years, and I did work my way through the process, and I don't find it cumbersome, but I'm saying that other people do find it cumbersome. I had an attorney call me yesterday who was filling his form out, and he actually did exclaim, how does a regular Joe that doesn't have 8 years of college education figure this thing out? And that was our net profit tax return. The business license application is pretty straightforward, but I get a lot of phone calls when people are trying to work through filling it out as to what information goes where. Like I say, they just need some help understanding it. I also get phone calls for state offices, for the clerk's office, for the city. People have questions all day, every day, because it's not an easy thing and nobody was born knowing it. You have to figure it out and work your way through it, and that is just difficult for a lot of people. So I'm not saying that our process is necessarily that bad, but it's still very difficult for a lot of people in certain circumstances to comply on their own if they don't feel like they have assistance or anyone to help them.
Okay. So
So-
Squire
so-
Muller, okay, go ahead, Squire Sebastian.
I was just going to get back to the first part of my question. So how are we to report that? Whom do we report it to? And how do we do that? And how are others doing it now? Thank you.
Lee, when you find out that someone doesn't have a license and they're doing work, what's your process?
I immediately, well, usually I have to do some research on the internet to find the business contact or website, and I either email, call, or send a letter, or all three, to start communicating with that person. Anything can be emailed into me any time of the night or day, and I am going to investigate it. I don't necessarily, like I say, if it's a civilian reporting, and we need, that's what, if we can engage the public into an easy streamline of reporting in people that they're hiring, like I say, that person doesn't need to be involved in the enforcement, but it gets me started on a process where I can contact and ensure compliance. If I don't get compliance, and perhaps you all think that there are other factors at play that are a problem in the community, then I think that is a larger issue that goes to the county attorney and law enforcement that I would not be involved with. That's not just a tax issue there.
Squire Booth?
Well, I hit Lee with a unlicensed business right after she was hired because it was roofing. For some reason, Southern Franklin County gets a lot of hail. I mean, HAIL hail. And I called Lee and she took care of it. I mean, I think that most people want to have a business license. They just, to find business and to get paid is all they care about. I mean, they will do a good job. I'm not saying that, but she took care of it. I'm not quite sure how she did it, but she took care of it. So I was very pleased with her performance. In fact, she sent me letters and envelopes to give to people that I thought might be unlicensed businesses.
Okay, Squire Muller?
I think it's been a good conversation, and Rick brings up a lot of good points. I mean, and Lee's done a great job. I mean, at the end of the day, the ones that are not doing it right know they're not doing it right. And the homeowners that are hiring them are doing it to save a buck. I mean, let's just be honest. It's as easy as that. So it's okay. You know, I know you all are going to talk to JC and Vince, and I'm going to do some research, maybe in surrounding counties, and then we'll just circle back.
Okay.
And y'all just let me say this, and we talked about it. I went back and found some notes, et cetera, from back when we discussed this. There was some discussion in addition about enforcement for a possible window of amnesty, much that like parallels the state law on taxes. If you don't pay it at a certain time, but you're willing to come up, they'll waive penalties, interest, et cetera. And sometimes they get some huge compliance. We've done that on other matters that I'm aware of. You may want to consider, I don't know, it's kind of rough out there for people's businesses and people who are going to do like bad things, be bad business people, and customers who are consciously aware, et cetera. You know, that's a business decision. License isn't going to fix it. Folks who are being taken advantage of, they get prosecuted. Those folks get arrested. We do that quite often. maybe an amnesty for those businesses who want to get right, because you're going to have to enforce, do whatever you got to on the ones who don't care, but they're going to be covered by other things. Maybe have a little carrot in addition to the stick that you're beating around on a less than $10,000 recovery. You might see more mileage on that than attempting to come up with an enforcement plan, because I've checked other ordinances in other counties and they're tracked out of this one from back in the day, almost to the letter. But with that being said, do what you will on it. Be mindful that you're going to get the enforcement that you're willing to pay for, in terms of time and money, and attempt, if you can, to see if maybe thinking outside the box may get you at least over the hurdle, if that's the question, to get them licensed. Then we can take up public safety and consumer protection in another fashion. But that's about all you're going to be able to do on this license issue.
Lee, one more piece of this that has been discussed before and I thought was a good idea, and that was sharing a person with the city. And you had called and talked with the city, I believe, about their enforcement officer that they have. Do you recall that? And have you talked with the city about what they're doing?
I have not talked to them about enforcement. I have worked with them on, we examined some softwares together. And that's the only time that I have interacted with Kim and David at the city, who are their two tax administrators over there. David is their enforcement officer, I believe. But I am not clear on, what his plan is or how he does enforcement rounds. But I do know he does, quite a bit of work there in the office as well.
Okay, so Squire Muller, if it's all right with you, you said you want to do some investigating. We're going to do some poll sampling, and the next time we meet, we'll do our best to try to get somebody from the city to come over and talk with us about what they're doing as well. And we'll just meet through the finance committee and start that process again. Fair enough?
Fair enough. Thank you, Judge.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Well, let's move on to the next item. The next item is authorization for approval of minutes from our regular meeting of June 30th. Any questions on our minutes? Seeing none, next item is authorization to receive the county clerk's quarterly report for the quarter ending June 30th. Mr. Hancock is here. Welcome, Mr. Hancock, and I'll turn the camera around on you.
Okay.
There you
Judge,
go, sir.
magistrates, can everybody hear me?
Can you all hear Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Okay. Turning in this quarter report, I want to first say I'm very proud of my staff, my chief deputy, and everybody that works at the clerk's office. I want you to know, for the last 2 months, you've obviously seen what's going on with elections, but that made me negate some of my duties over at the main office. I've been able to keep up with budgets and stuff of that nature because I was always over at the election office. And Jack Kennedy, Valerie Grimes, LaDonna Stamper, and all my staff just did a fabulous job of making sure not only that we got open, but that we got open and were able to collect taxes at the rate that we could get the consumer in to pay. Starting on the first line, the 15,000, if you'll look at the 2020 fee budget estimate of 15,122,720, our actual year to date, we're at 49% on the on our distributions. We're at 48%, and the one that really matters the most, our book balance, which is our excess fees, we're at 85%. Now, there's some reason that we're up that high right now. There's also $71,630 in that number. That is, if you'll remember us talking about it, it's the excess storage fee, which was being used to upgrade the storage and the amount of software that we had on the electronic side. It's a new fee that was just brought in. I had it budgeted at $125,000 for the year. So we are doing really well on that money, but that money is still left in the $400,282. So if you back that money out, you would have excess fees right now of $329,282, which would be 70% year to date, with us only halfway through the year. I will tell you that because of the COVID virus, we will eventually have to amend this budget. I went down through, and I'm always very cautious of what's going on with my budget. Like, for example, the passport photos and the passport work, there's no way for us to catch back up. And we haven't even opened our passport office yet because we don't have ways to keep the separation from the residents and from the consumer. And passport, we just don't get calls on them right now. Nobody's traveling, nobody's going anywhere. So we have no use right now to reopen, and we need to keep all of our resources going toward the 2020 November election. And I think it's the best way to spend our resources right now. So we're going to have to amend that. We're going to have to amend a couple of things. For example, our postage, we had it at 15,000. We're already at $8,600. So we're at 71% of total budget on our postage. Now, these line items might not seem like they add up, but these are things that are results of us having to deal with COVID, having to mail out more stuff, having to mail out people that, we're doing 300% more web renewals right now. Well, 300% more web renewals means I'm mailing out 300% more mail in the respects to the web renewals. So we're going to have to change some of that. I'm not prepared to do any budget amendments at this point because we're still in line on every line item at this point. But I know before the year's up, we'll end up having to amend them. I feel I can't tell you how proud I am of my staff. They've really stepped to the table. They've done a fabulous job. They continue to do a fabulous job. And to you guys for getting the glass up and we were able to put that glass partition up. That's why we're open. You still have clerk's offices across the state that are not open. They're not able to collect taxes. They don't have the excess fees that we have. It's just what you all have allowed us to do and what we've allowed to do with creative ways to find ways to be open and to help the public. I couldn't be any prouder of them. So be glad to field any questions at this point. And thank you all for letting me come out today.
All right, any questions for Mr. Hancock? Squire Sebastian?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry, Judge. I just wanted to, Mr. Clerk, could you tell us a little bit about maybe some other expenses that you think you're going to have kind of changes in the categories on? Because I would agree with you, and I had made a note here to ask you about more mailings since people are doing things fewer and certainly much less in person and other activities. I didn't know if it was bearing itself out halfway through the year where you could kind of see some of those categories just for our own edification so we can start thinking about that as well. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. On the revenue side, fish and game, we will not get anywhere close to the amount that we've sold in the past. They're all small things. Handicap placards, we won't do as many of those. I think part of that is now that there's a cost associated for the second handicap placard, which is where we make money, that we are now in the second year of that. So I think that was just some unforeseen thing, and the COVID people not coming back out. On our revenues coming in, we're really doing pretty well. It's more on expenditures. I would expect to spend more on elections than we did, especially going into this general. I'm expecting a 70% turnout in the fall. 70% turnout will add about $28,000 if we open all 6 of the magisterial districts, which is exactly what I plan to do. I think we're going to end up spending about $28,000 more than we did in this election for the general. I'm watching very cautiously. I sure hope that this success that we have with these mail-in ballots will continue. But what we can't afford for them to do, for all of your all's knowledge, what we can't afford for them to do is say, okay, you all go ahead and do the mail-in ballots, and we're not going to supply you any of the envelopes. We're not going to supply any of the return postage. We're not going to supply any of the things that go along with that. Well, now if we do the same amount of ballots, if we do 13 or 14,000, you can multiply that by about $4 a ballot for every one we're sending out, instead of the $1.21 that it cost us to get them out this time, because all we were doing was paying the outgoing postage. So it could become a very, very expensive process if we do not get state help. And that's
So
really all my concern goes toward the election right this second in budget issues.
So just one quick follow up on that. Mr. Clerk, you had indicated that you think everything's going to be about 70% turnout for the elections. What
Yes.
kind of gives you an indication of that? Because we were right at 50%. Is it because it's a presidential election and that usually drives things up a certain percentage, or is some other factors kind of weighing into that? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think the presidential, we always vote high in the presidential, but I also think that you're getting more attention. When you start changing things and we're advertising more and we're telling people that where they have to go for elections, and it's more, and we're giving them more options, Squire Sebastian. When we're allowing them to vote in person for 30 days with no excuse, absentee, I mean, we've really changed it from a 1-day election day to a 30-day election day. It's probably a model that we need to start looking toward the future. 30 days for people to actually come in and be able to express their, and they can do that on, on a lunch hour or this or that, the other. So that's why I'm assuming we'll see 70% turnout, is because Franklin County, if there's an option available, the Franklin County residents will have it.
Squire Moore?
Yes, Jeff, I'm getting a lot of complaints from people about you not accepting cash. I know you want to protect your people, and then they have to pay a 3% if they have to use a debit card or credit card. Is any give in that area?
Squire Moore, I'll be glad to address this. I'm not sure that anybody will like the answer to this, but last year we did $15.5 million in business. We did $1.6 million in cash. That means 252 days out of the year, I carried over $5,000 in cash in my office behind no security. If the court wants to get me a security officer that sits at my front door every day for 252 days, plus walk the bank deposits down, I'll start taking cash again. But until then, it's a safety issue.
Well, it's also a COVID safety issue.
It's
Well,
both, all the
well,
way
what
around. Sitting there with
Well,
us.
Can you
sitting behind
negotiate
the
with
security
your credit card companies or whatever to lower the debit card fee? You know, Kroger, Walmart don't charge use a debit card.
I understand that we're a fee office. I
Yeah.
would love to take all the fees out. I've already negotiated it down to a 3% fee. I will go in and negotiate again, because obviously what our actions are making them have more transactions. I'll go in and do my best to negotiate it down again. But the going rate at 3% is above par for any other business that's doing business with them. We can't pay out of our fees because we are a fee office. We don't have the option of paying that fee. If we could, I would. I agree. I agree with the consumer. I'm not against the consumer right now. I'm against the safety of the clerks that work in that office from having the option of somebody losing. I mean, making one bad decision makes for a really bad day for 15 employees of the
Well, I
county.
understand, but I'm looking at a $5 bill here and it says this is legal tender for all debts, public and private. And we've got a county clerk's office that's not accepting cash. It just doesn't seem right to me. So hopefully we can get it worked out.
Or Squire Moore, I'll be glad to. I mean, if we want to put a security officer down there, but the safety and the health and well-being of all the employees that work at the county is what I think is the number one important thing. I understand the argument. I get the fight.
Well, the banks don't have security officers.
I'm sorry.
The banks I go into don't have security officers on hand.
A lot of them do.
No.
That's kind of the point, is you don't know they have them on hand, but I assure you, Squire, they've got security officers.
Right. All right. I'm not arguing.
We're not the only government agency that's not taking cash. The courthouse is not taking cash. City Hall's not taking cash.
Fayette County hadn't taken cash in their clerk's
virtually
office
all
for decades.
It's just wrong. People, you can say what you want. It's just wrong.
We understand. We understand.
I get the complaint. I understand the complaint. I need help with the solution. I mean, we don't have a line item in this budget. We are a fee office. If we want to go to the other fee office, which is the sheriff's office, and he wants to put a deputy down at my front doors from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. every day, by all means, I'll open up to cash tomorrow. But until we get something that's more secure and more securability in today's climate, with the way that everybody's reacting to this, I can't see us taking cash without some type of security backing.
Squire Booth?
I just want to ask the clerk if he's proud of his staff.
He just made that statement a second ago, but go ahead,
I
Squire.
know, several times. So, are you proud of your staff, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
all.
Did I see another hand? All right, Squire Sebastian.
Just quickly, just to follow up on Squire Moore's question, Mr. Clerk, has there been an incident or series of incidents where someone has been accosted in trying to carry the cash down? You know, you've got me thinking now that there are people lurking around South Frankfort or in the business district now following our staff around. So I'm just trying to figure out how frequently that happens, if there's been some kind of incident like that where someone's been harmed or the threat of harming someone is out there. Thank you.
We've had more than one incident where either myself, only people that take the deposits down are me and Jack, but we've had more than one incident where it was an uncomfortable situation.
Okay. Anything else for our clerk? Seeing nothing, Mr. Hancock, thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
your
guys.
report. And thank you for your conversation. And by all means, we appreciate if you could negotiate that fee down. I know
all
you
about
will.
it. I'll do everything I can. Thank you,
Appreciate it.
guys.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Next item is authorization to receive the sheriff's 2019 collection settlement for collections period May 1st, 2019 through May 31st, 2020. Sheriff Quire, are you on? Sorry. Sheriff Quire.
His phone is on here. I've texted him a couple of times. He is traveling.
Sheriff Quire, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, I heard you all 3 times. I guess I didn't come across. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yes, we're very grateful and thankful to our citizens and our taxpayers here in Franklin County. We have a lot to be grateful for. We collected at a high rate of 98.75% of the total base amount for 2019. And we turned over the 732 remaining unpaid bills to the clerk back on May the 15th.
Okay.
I've talked to other sheriffs in surrounding counties, and there's a few that have a lot lower collection rate. So I just want to thank everyone for paying their tax bill on time, and we're grateful. As far as the 2020 tax collections go, due to COVID-19, we still are waiting on the state. They've extended some of their deadlines that may affect our tax period for this year. So there's some uncertainty there, but we're hoping that our schedule will stay on November 1st to start collections. And we've been working close with our PBA and clerk to make sure that happens.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Sheriff Quire? Sheriff Quire, thank you. Thank you for the great job of collecting our taxes and for the service you do to provide safety in our community. We appreciate you. Safe travels. Be careful as you're traveling.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is authorization to approve a contract extension and amendment number 7 to Southern Health Partners Agreement with the jail. Mr. Jailer Bonner. Jailer Bonner.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We got you.
Good evening, court. How are you all?
Fine.
This is the Southern Health Partners medical amendment. I've learned that this contract's been going on since 2009. Early on the contract, they wanted a 3% increase, and I just absolutely would not do that. I told them I'm not going to bring a 3% increase to the court in the middle of a COVID-19, and we negotiated down where it would be a continuation budget financially. There were a few changes in the amendment of subsection 2 There was a item in there where they wanted my deputies to pass out meds on occasions, and I said, absolutely not. We're not medically trained for that, and I'd rather not do that unless it's an absolute emergency. So we took subsection C out of 2.1 in the contract, and the only other difference in the contract from last year is section 4.4. That is basically they want us to have enough staff on hand to make sure that they can do their job, such as medical, passing out meds in the back and in the front throughout the facility, and also taking people to medical appointments and stuff of that nature. They didn't give me a number. They just said adequate, and I'm sure that we will have no problem with that. And that's pretty much all there is to it.
Okay, questions? Squire Muller?
Hey, thanks, Jailer Banner. Question, when was the last time this was, I guess, bid out? You said we've had a contract with them through 2009. How often do we bid this service out? Thank you.
I can't really answer that question for you, Mr. Moore. I wasn't here. I've heard that it's been shopped once, but I can't confirm that since 2009. I can tell you that this one, this contract snuck up on me this year because of all that's been going on. I would like to look at other directions next year, and if nothing else, like shopping insurance. Southern Health Partners may be the best, but I think they need a little bit of competition. So I would like to do an RFP next year. If that helps.
Thank you very much.
About what time of year do we need to do that? Or should we do that like in budget time or when?
I'm probably going to start somewhere in this early spring.
Okay. All right.
And to answer the question a little further, my understanding is for the past several years, for 24-hour medical at the size of facility we are, there's just not a lot of options out there, and that may be changing. So
that was true. Squire Tracy, I think you were first.
Thanks, Judge. Jailer Bond, a quick question. Underneath of staffing in A where it's holidays, and then on B it says SHP will endeavor to provide replacement coverage during absences. So all they're going to do is try hard. Is there a guarantee that they're going to be there? Is there no guarantee that they're going to be there?
And subsection A, I wanted them to highlight what holidays they are, because their holidays may be different than the county holidays. And then on subsection B, the absences, when I first took over in September, people call in sick sometimes, and here lately, the night shift nurse has been here pretty regularly. But if a nurse misses, they reimburse us for each time that we have a miss. If that makes sense, for that 8-hour shift, we get reimbursed on our contract, and they've been doing that since I've been here. If that answers your question, sir.
It does. And I guess my next question would be, when they call out sick or so forth, what type of burden does that put on staff?
Not really on staff, other than we would call in the head nurse.
Okay.
Emergency. The head nurse is always on call pretty much. And
thank you, sir.
No problem. To add to that, Squire Tracy, is I'm advising my staff, if they have any question, they can override and send to the hospital. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Mr. Jailer. Just a few things, and these were similar questions I asked last year, and I wanted to follow up on something that you had also just said. And looking back at last year's agreement, there was 1 month where the first month of the year, July, the first month of FY20, where the rate that the county paid was $31,739.88. After that, it went up to $44,000. So so it seems like these contracts aren't exactly the same as last year. Also, in last year's agreement, it talked about that there would be a refund, just what you talked about, but that language is not in this agreement that we're looking at now. So I'm not sure how we negotiate that to get that back in there, but I think that is most certainly something. So I have a few other questions to ask, and just want to see if maybe this might be something that we hold off signing in order to get these terms back in there. So how does staff, how many staff will this agreement put on each shift from Southern Health Partners? Because it talks about number of hours, et cetera, throughout the year. So each shift, I'm assuming, has someone from Southern Health Partners as part of the shift. How many staff will this contract put on each shift?
Are you ready for answers?
For this one, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please.
In reference to, I'm going to go backwards if you don't mind. In reference, they're not on our jail shift. They're not employed by me. They are here. There's normally at least one nurse or medical staff here. And then there's also during the day they have a bookkeeper, and that was part of the hours. If you notice, the 237 was a lower number last year, so they have put a bookkeeper in there, which is important. So if they have no effect on our shift as deputies.
Yes, I understand that, Mr. Jailer. I'm just trying to figure out what time each person from Southern Health will come in. Is there someone there during the day? Let's take the word shift out of it. There's someone there during day hours and someone there during evening hours, and then someone there in early morning hours that carries you from midnight to 8. I'm just trying to find out how many people from this organization, Southern Health Partners, are there to take care of what they contractually say they're going to do for the county.
I understand. Now I understand your question better. There normally during the day there's 2 here because there's a lot more going on. And the evenings and the nights there's 1 here usually.
And you indicated earlier that one of them that's there during the day is a bookkeeper. So is everyone there a medically trained individual to handle medical emergencies, or are there administrative staff from Southern Health Partners that participate in activities through this contract?
All but the bookkeeper.
So during the day, you said there are 2 people there. So is one a bookkeeper and one a medically trained staff person? Is that what you're saying?
There are 2 most of the time there are 2 medically trained staff here, RNs, and a bookkeeper. So there's 3 during the day.
And then you said one at night, and that one at night, do they span the entire evening until the sun comes up? Is that what you're saying?
14 days, 7 days a week.
I'm not sure what time if the sun. They're usually here until 7 a.m. and then the medical the morning shift comes in.
That's fine. I'm just trying to figure out because it talks about 24-hour coverage. So I didn't know if, just trying to make sure that someone is there for that period of time. The contract also says that as in excess is billed to the county at a certain wage and benefits rate. How often, if they're there in excess hours, if they stay longer, how often does that happen where they, and I'm trying to stay away from word shift, stay away from that. I don't know. They're assigned hours to be there. How frequently does that happen where we're paying them additional pay to stay longer?
Not very often at all, ma'am. They are, with talking to the CEO of Southern Health Partners, they are very strict on overtime and stuff of that nature as well.
But it does happen, right? It's happened.
I'm not aware of any time that's happened. But I have talked to the CEO about it. I've talked to the head nurse about it, and you know they do have incidents. I mean, we have had emergencies here, and thank God they're here. So I'm assuming when emergencies happen, they may have to work a little extra on their time. If that answers your question, I can tell you they saved 2 lives today.
That's certainly what they're there for.
Yes, ma'am.
So in that same section, and I hear Rich talking too, so whomever is most appropriate to answer these questions. The contract also says that Southern Healthcare Partners shall make reasonable efforts to supply staffing levels through constraints in the section, but failure to do so will not constitute a breach of contract. So we're basically saying that if they don't follow what's in the contract, it's okay. It's not really breach. Who then determines what that reasonable effort is to put someone on staff? Because it gets to that nebulous language, I think, that Squire Tracy talked about earlier, about what truly is reasonable, because you have just said having them there on site saves lives. And so when they're not there, then we run the risk of not being able to save lives. So how does that happen, and how are we covered in that instance when that doesn't happen?
Rick Sparks, would you like to comment on that?
You're exactly correct, Squire. That was exactly addressed last year. For whatever reason, that nebulous language was placed in there that wouldn't constitute a breach, wouldn't constitute a breach or cancellation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I know. We talked about it
how
last
do
year.
we remedy? But that's the whole point. We're looking at this to decide whether we're going to sign it and agree to these terms. I don't think a breach should be a breach. We shouldn't say, well, you cover breach in here, but we're going to let you out on that. I don't understand why we're giving someone an out clause when, to just exactly as the jailer has said, he said someone saved 2 lives.
Oh, Sherry, I can't. Frankly, I can't tell if you're asking a question or just testifying yourself. I don't disagree with everything that you're saying. Yeah, wait, hold on.
Jailer Bonta testified, I guess, just now that 2 lives were saved. I'm just trying to figure it out because we want to protect the county, and that's our job here, is to try to protect the county.
Yes, ma'am. As I was saying, I hear what you're saying, and I'm trying to figure out the question. The jailer has to determine whether or not there's a breach. The terms of the breach in there, what they're saying is if they don't have sufficient staffing, et cetera, the remedy is by changing the amount that you pay them. If that's what you choose to do, if you want to kick it back and say you want a more objective standard, and if they don't do it for X number of days, then it counts as a breach. Okay. That's what you're questioning, whether or not you're going to do that and what your remedy is going to be. Your remedy right now is that they don't get paid if they don't have staffing. If you want to change that to a different or more stringent one, that was discussed the last time, and the last jailer didn't elect to do that. That's why you all are getting to face their proposed extension. If you don't like it, kick it back.
Well, I can say I don't like it. I mean,
right. I mean, that's the whole point of the discussion. That's what you all are deciding. If you don't, but it ultimately goes back to jailing staff, and those are jailer questions on monitoring it. But that's why it's still there. It was rejected the last time when I mentioned about a more objective standard.
Yeah, I brought that up last year. I've got my notes out here, and I asked about that last year, and somehow it got through anyway. So I'm looking on page 2 of this document in front of us, so everybody can go to page 2, the second paragraph. That's an entirely new paragraph where it talks about should medical services fall behind due to situations outside of their control, such as described in the section 4. And I think our jailer talked about that being an entirely new section. Should staffing levels of the correctional staff fall below an acceptable standard? Again, that's more of that nebulous language because it doesn't say what the acceptable standard is. So I'm not really sure who decides what that is. So I don't know who can answer that question. I'm tossing it out.
It also says at the end of that, it says staffing levels to, the Southern Health Partners would have to report that to me. If they feel like that there's not enough staff, it says they will report that to me.
It does, but it talks about such issues of backlogs created. So does that mean they can effectuate a remedy at that moment? Or do they come back later and say, oh, we had a problem 2 days ago? It's not real clear. So that's why I'm asking.
I agree, Squire.
So I guess from my perspective, there are a few things because, our job is to protect the best interests of the county. And I don't know with some of this nebulous language, I don't know if it's something I can support going forward till that is cleared up. Just me speaking for me.
Mr. Sparks, are you comfortable with this nebulous language, which is described by Squire Sebastian with this contract?
We've been working under it for several years, Judge, last year as well. I'm sure that the issue on there is COVID related because we don't know about staffing levels anywhere at any time. So I'm sure they snuck in that. Obviously, it wasn't snuck in. I didn't mean to say it that way. But in response to concerns about staffing level, yeah, you all can micromanage anything you want to. And I think there should be a contract where you have to approve every 15 cents if that's your pleasure. But there's no way to draft a contract that can accurately measure down to the penny about any of this stuff. At some point or another, it's comfortable enough to where they can call Jake and Jake says, I got a problem and he can do something to fix it out, or whoever the jailer may be. There's simply going to be, it's very difficult to reach that level of precision on any contract and agreement where people are involved under circumstances like the jail. It's worked in that regard. If you want to tighten it, I guess we can try, but it's ultimately, it's hard to get into that level of detail.
Well, I only raise this because we realize over the last couple of years, the county is involved in some lawsuits based on some health and safety issues that directly fall at the feet of Southern Health Partners. So I raise that because I want to make sure we tighten it up as much as we can to protect the county. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up, but I brought these same things up last year.
And I shared those concerns last year as well, Sherry. It's as good as we can try to draft anything you want to on it. It's a human endeavor, and I don't want to go into other matters. But it's been in place regarding the performance, and there has to be some degree of cooperation and information shared between the parties there on scene, i.e. the jailer and whoever the medical provider is.
Jailer Bonner, are you comfortable with this contract?
Yes, sir. I feel like it's a continuation from last year financially. I feel like Southern Health Partners is the 24-hour medical has been a speed bump, and it's not new anymore. It's almost a year old. The reason in her first and Squire Sebastian's first question, the difference there is I believe the first month of it was August of 24-hour medical of it actually going in effect. I'm okay with this contract. I do want to see what else is out there before we sign another one next year.
Okay. Squire Booth. Got to unmute Squire Booth.
I want to know if the bookkeeper's records are going to be available to the county.
Those are medical records, Squire.
Yes, I am. Well, there are several questions from Squire Sebastian that you were not able to answer. You didn't know the details. You couldn't remember exactly. I think we need the bookkeeper. We need better records, either from you or from them.
I don't understand your question, Squire.
Yeah,
I'm saying that you need to know more about the contract and how it was used. You are the jailer. We look to you for that information. That's what I'm saying.
Squire Booth, that's an unfair statement because the questions weren't about his ability to work the contract. It's about some of the verbiage in the contract. So that's a very unfair statement to say that. Squire Moore.
Stand by.
Yes, Rick, since there's been changes made to this contract, can we actually call it a continuation contract?
I think what he means is it continues the terms regarding the final performance in terms of payment per inmate, et cetera. it's technically an amendment, an approved amendment. It's not a renewal because it does change some of the provisions as Squire Sebastian noted from last year. I would also tell you all or let y'all know if you're looking at the portion of the contract that addresses the records, it's contained in section 3.4 with some limitations on inmate medical records, but financial records are free and subject to some limitations on disclosure.
Thank you.
That's it.
Squire Muller?
Yeah, hey, Mr. Sparks, you had made the comment that last year, I guess we discussed this and wanted some things changed and it didn't happen or maybe something like that. Is that because they didn't want it to happen or we just left the verbiage the same?
Squire, I can't speak to that in terms of anybody's motives, et cetera. I know that you all were presented with an amendment and you all agreed to an amendment.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, Squire Tracy.
Jailer Ron, a quick question. What's the current inmate count?
Give me just a second. I'll look it up. It was 196 earlier today. Let me pull it up here. 196.
So if you go over 275, it looks like there's an additional charge for everyone over the 275 number. I know there's a lot of things going on and a lot of things that's out of everybody's control, but do you see going over 275?
Eventually, you know, we've jumped 30 inmates in the last couple months. As courts are opening back up somewhat, and the police departments and the sheriff's departments and the state police. But last year, our overages, a lot of got to do with the per diem. So I don't know. Yes, sir. I think we will go over 275. When? I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other? Squire Blackburn?
Yes, let's see here. The compensation rate for Standard Health Partners, is it the same for 275 going forward for this year as it was last year? I think it was at 300.
No, I believe it was 275 last year, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we're going to move on, and I'm going to change the items around just a little bit. We've had Counselor David Smith on the line for quite a bit to talk about a resolution holding a public hearing in Owen County concerning Kentucky American Water. And Mr. Smith, welcome, and I apologize that we've taken so long to get to you. So we will bring you up, and you and Mr. Sparks and myself have sat down and talked about this. So if you would explain to the court what is going on, we'd appreciate it. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Judge Wells, and no need to apologize. I'm happy to join you this evening, and I appreciate the opportunity to describe this resolution to you. I'm with the law firm of Stahl, Keenan, Ogden in Lexington, and this matter relates to a project of Kentucky American Water that was constructed in 2009 and 2010. It involved a water treatment plant in Owen County at the Owen-Franklin County line. Pipeline from the plant that runs through Franklin, Scott, and Fayette counties, and also situated in Franklin County, just across from the water treatment plant. There's an intake and raw water pump station, as well as a booster pumping station and a water storage tank. This substantial part of the project, and in particular the water treatment plant that sits in Owen County, was funded by 3 bond issuances by Owen County during 2009 and 2010 that in the aggregate totaled nearly $100 million. Each one of those bond issuances, two that were done by Owen County in 2009 and one in 2010, and these were private activity bond issuances that I know you as a court are familiar with from your own bond issuances in Franklin County, where bonds were sold by the county and the proceeds were in turn loaned to Kentucky American Water to finance that portion of the project. Each of the three bond issuances, the two in 2009 and the one in 2010, became subject to optional redemption on the part of Owen County after 10 years. And so last year, when that optional redemption threshold was reached with respect to those two issuances from 2009, because of the interest rate environment, it was favorable in terms of the financing cost to the county to refinance those bond issuances by refunding those bond issuances. And so a bond issuance roughly on the order of $72 million was done by Owen County last fall to refinance the two bond issuances from 2009. And as anticipated, when the $26 million bond issuance from 2010 became subject to optional redemption on June 1st of this year, again, obviously given the interest rate environment, it was again financially beneficial to now refund that 2000 bond issuance. And so Owen County Fiscal Court gave the first reading 2 nights ago, this past Tuesday, to a bond ordinance that would in fact issue a new $26 million bond issuance, refunding issuance, in order to refinance that 2010 issuance. Now, again, based on your own experience, I'm sure you're familiar with a TEFRA hearing. That was a requirement. It's under Section 147 of the Internal Revenue Code. It goes back to 1986, and it is as County Attorney Sparks referred to it when we've discussed this, it's akin to a comment period. It's a requirement under the Internal Revenue Code in connection with the proper issuance of private activity bonds like these, that a TEFRA hearing be held where members of the public can come, if they choose, and comment on the proposed bond issuance. We had a TEFRA hearing in 2009 and 2010 on each bond issuance in Owen County. And we are now to the point, based again on the value of the assets in the respective counties here, that in order to do this refunding issuance, the $26 million, we are required under the Internal Revenue Code to have a TEFRA hearing on behalf of not only Owen, but also Franklin County. Now, what is possible and what is being proposed in this resolution, in order to satisfy that obligation that we have under the Internal Revenue Code as it relates to Franklin County, Franklin County does not have to actually conduct a TEFRA hearing, but can pass a resolution where it relies upon the TEFRA hearing that is now scheduled to be held in Owen County at the next meeting of the Owen Fiscal Court on Tuesday, July 28th. So this resolution satisfies the obligation, again, for a TEFRA hearing related to Franklin County under the Internal Revenue Code, but does so as permitted by the code based upon this resolution, where you would take action and adopt a resolution that says you will rely upon the hearing to be held in Owen County. And an ad was published in the State Journal this week, identical to the ad published in Owen County, announcing in the State Journal this meeting scheduled to be held on July 28th, so that, in fact, citizens of Franklin County, if they so choose, can weigh in and attend and comment on the proposed bond issuance by the Owen Fiscal Court. So that's as quickly as I can summarize it, Judge Wells, that is the background to this resolution and the nature of the resolution that's before your court this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Sparks?
Yes, Judge, that's correct. What this is there's a peculiarity in the code that requires those areas to be subject to a public comment period. At first, I questioned the other things we needed to do, i.e., a public hearing with findings, recommendations, et cetera. There's no provision in the code for that. That's why I refer to it as a public comment period. Because Owen County will be the one who's being sought to issue the bonds, they would be taking the information, taking the proof, so to speak, one way or the other, and making their decision. Franklin County would have no ability to vote, approve, disapprove, et cetera. So when David presented this to the court, we discussed how to handle that public comment period and get it before the Owen County Court. And to avoid having to do it twice, that is, hear it and then carry the testimony information back, the code allows you to do that in just one county, and the other counties defer. So what's being asked of you is to approve the process to allow Owen County to run the Owen County hearing that they're going to be voting on to refinance these bonds.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Smith or our County Attorney Sparks? Everybody understand what's going on here? Squire Booth?
What he's asking for is permission to not have a second hearing and for Franklin County to rely on Owen County's public hearing. Am I correct in that?
That's basically correct.
All right.
To properly issue these bonds under the code, a TEFRA hearing action has to be made on behalf of both counties. But Franklin County has the ability under the Internal Revenue Code, particularly since Owen County is the one actually issuing the bonds, to rely upon the TEFRA hearing being held in Owen County, as opposed to having, as Rick just mentioned, two hearings.
Any other questions? Mr. Smith? Okay, sorry. Squire Moore?
So does this give the people of Franklin County the right to speak at this hearing?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. That was what I was just going to pop in on.
That was why we published the notice that we did earlier this week in the State Journal.
Okay.
And in fact, Squire, it does not only give us the opportunity, I say us, residents of Franklin County, the opportunity to weigh in on it, but it allows those individuals who wish to weigh in on it direct access to the body who's going to be making the decision.
Right. That's what I thought. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Smith, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your patience. We appreciate it. And we wish Owen County all the best.
Thank you. And if you take action and adopt the resolution, then we'll get the signed copy.
We'll get that to you. That will come in our voting session after we go through the work session.
I understand. Thank you very much. I appreciate your understanding.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, I go back up to item number 6. That's the authorization to accept Peaks Mills Water District's audit report for the years ended December 31st, 2019 and 2018. Mr. Quarles, are you on the phone?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
All right. Good. I appreciate the invite. We went through our audit, had it presented to the board a couple months ago. We've got a clean audit. We had a decrease of about $113,000 in our net assets. And of course, I think that's mostly attributable to the issues and problems we had with the water district the last 6 months of 19. So other than that, we feel like we're back on pretty good terms with the water right now.
Well, I think that's the first question that all of us want to know is, how's the water? How are you with the clarification of the water?
Well, we've, like I say, we had, excuse me, we had a rough time between middle of July of 19 to January, middle of January, I think is when we finally got off the last of our boil water advisories. The state, in the meantime, asked and requested and told us that we were going to go under an agreed order with them. We certainly accepted that and said it was, went forward with it. We filed that with the state in March. They have yet to approve it, but we have been operating under that agreed order basically since the first of the year. We have made an interconnection with Kentucky American. We went through what they call their spring flush, I suppose. It's a chlorination, heavy chlorination. We're still on Kentucky American today. We have not had any boil water advisories since our last one expired in January, and we're continuing to monitor very closely. So right now, I think we're on a pretty good basis. In the meantime, of course, I know you all are aware of it. We've had 2 new board members join out there, Ross Thompson and Raven Turner. They're getting adjusted to the problems confronting the district, and we look forward to being able to work together to make this district hum, so to speak.
Any questions for Mr. Quarles? Squire Booth? You have to unmute, Squire Booth.
I'd like to hear what Squire Tracy has to say about this water district.
Squire Tracy.
Thanks, Judge. Good evening, church, and thank you for joining us. Just a couple quick questions. I know that the Emergency Connect is up and going, and I think it's been going for about 6 months or so, but how long do you anticipate Peaks Mill Water District having to use the Connect to not only furnish water, but to continue that flush, especially on that backside?
You broke up, or with my internet connection, you broke up. I didn't catch most of that, Scotty.
I'm sorry. How long do you anticipate Peaks Mill Water District having to use the Connect with Kentucky American Water?
All right, I heard it all in. We're planning on using their water until the end of October. At that point, we will switch back to Frankfurt Plant Board for approximately 6 months and take a look at will we continue to alternate back and forth between the 2 water supplies.
Was there very much feedback in regards to when the Connect, I guess when it became active as far as the flushing and so forth? I know things have kind of, it just seems like things have gotten better since all of that's taken place. So I know you all have been hit from every direction, as well as the judge, and I have probably the county attorney too. So just thank you all for all your hard work. You and the office staff, I know they've fielded a ton of phone calls, and not so many of them being happy. So just please, if you will relay that to the office staff, thank them, thank the board members. Good luck and keep up the hard work.
We certainly appreciate your comments, and I will relay all that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Quarles, I would like to say also I want to say to the people, Squire Tracy, the people that you represent in this Peaksville area, they've gone through a lot, starting about this time last year and through for at least 6 months. They've endured quite a bit of hardship. And it was because of your efforts, Mr. Quarles, and the other board members to make sure that this was done right. We thank you too. And we know it hadn't been easy because we've been on the front line with you in one way or another. Squire Tracy, would you not agree? And you especially, Squire Tracy, and you deserve a round of thank you too, because you went out on your own, paid for yourself, bottled water for the people in your district, put it at the fire station and at the Peaks Mill Water office. And that's very commendable of you, looking after your constituents. But most of all, we're happy and grateful that today, and we hope not again, we have resolved this issue to the best of our ability. Would you not agree with that, Mr. Quarles?
I would agree.
Yes, sir. Thank you again. We appreciate it, and send out a great pat on the back thank you to all the board members and staff at the Water District. We thank them too. All right.
I will do it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is an authorization to approve a resolution of the fiscal court of the county of Franklin, Kentucky, adopting certain guidelines and procedures in connection with the compliance with Rule 15C 2-12 of the Securities and Exchange Commission. We have on the line RJ Palmer. Thank you, RJ, for staying on with us. And would you explain this resolution in its intricacies based on the compliance of the rule with the Securities and Exchange Commission? Mr. Palmer, RJ Palmer, or Keith Brock.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here, Judge. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I forgot to unmute.
Okay.
I apologize. Thank you very much, Judge and members of the court. This resolution is in accordance with what the county is already doing in regards to financial disclosures. It is now a requirement by the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is the regulatory body that oversees the underwriters or the people who purchase your debt. So this is, again, just to, I guess, pass the resolution to say that we are formally doing what we've already been doing, which is disclosing our financial information to the financial industry on an annual basis.
Okay. This is a two-part, two separate parts, but both of them are tied together. Are there any questions on the first part of this the first resolution? Okay, RJ, will you talk about the second?
Okay, the second resolution is the authorization.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Sebastian's hand came up a little bit late.
Okay, sure.
Sebastian, you have a question on the first part.
I do. Good to hear from you, Mr. Brock. I do have a question about Section 2, Amendment of Procedures. Maybe you could you just kindly explain the current procedure? Because this section notes for us that an amendment in procedures, and I'm not sure what those are. And it also why are those deemed to be in the best interest of Franklin County? I'm just not real clear on this Section 2 Amendment of Procedures. So I'm not sure. So my question is what are the current procedures if we're amending them to give this just to the judge to do rather than coming before fiscal court? Thank you.
1 second, let me pull that up.
Yeah, it's on page 1.
The short answer on the benefit is that when underwriters or people who purchase the debt of cities or counties, municipalities, when they see the resolution's been adopted, that gives them some comfort because the SEC regulates them. So when they know that you have adopted the procedure that you're going to comply with continuing disclosure, that provides a safeguard for them. And again, this is disclosure that the county is already making. But I don't have it up in front of me, Squire Sebastian. Hold 1 second.
That's okay. I can read Section 2 to you just really quickly. It's very short. It says Amendment of Procedures. The fiscal court hereby delegates to the judge executive and the treasurer in consultation with bond counsel, the authority to amend the procedures on a case-by-case basis as deemed necessary. So my question was what is the current procedure? Because you're asking us to change that in this section. And why would we want to change that? I mean, wouldn't we as a court want to kind of have an understanding of moving funds around? So just asking that. Thank you.
Sure. Well, first of all, it doesn't authorize the moving of funds. And I'll have to say that I'm not familiar with what procedure or policy you currently have in place, but this allows just the judge and the treasurer to release the financial information, which they're already doing. And that will be done, Squire Sebastian, through the audit, which is approved by the fiscal court.
And I can, this is Susan, I can assure you that when we get notifications, and we do get notifications for the continuing disclosure, basically what I do is I call the financial advisor. I call RJ, and I can't remember the staff member's name for them. I say, I got the notification. Please fill out the necessary SEC form or IRS form that's required to follow up. So yes, I lean back on them because I am not an expert in any of this at all. So I lean back on the FA for all of the work on this. And thank you, RJ and Keith, for that.
Well, thank you, Susan. And that is correct. We will file the disclosure on behalf of the county. And once you receive your final audit and it's approved, that is basically what we're talking about here. So we're just publishing that to investors so that information is disseminated to them.
Okay, thank you. I just wasn't sure what the current procedure is and why it was necessary or appropriate to amend that and change it.
Honestly, I think that really, Squire Sebastian, that is typically the procedure now. I think we're just stating that in the resolution, probably for generalities.
Okay, Squire Booth.
Thank you.
You have to unmute, Squire Booth.
Sorry. This resolution is not changing anything, but it is making it, well, are we going to be penalized if we don't make that disclosure? Is that why we're passing the resolution, to make it a requirement to our procedures? And if we don't disclose, then we are penalized?
That is already the case. When you issue debt, you enter into a continuing disclosure agreement that you will timely file your financial information. Okay. And we're already doing that. So it's really not changing anything. It's really more for the underwriters. When they see this, they're more probable to bid. More competition means lower cost of money for the county.
So there's a big database in the sky that investors look at, and this resolution will help our position in that database, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Now that's the first part. The second part is the refinancing of the bonds. Go ahead, Mr. Palmer, please, sir.
Thank you, Judge. So this is the refinancing of the 2011 A and B bonds for the Judicial Center. They are currently carrying a rate of 4.25%. We estimate that based upon current market conditions, we can issue the debt for 2.43%, resulting in savings of approximately $503,000 to the taxpayers in the state of Kentucky. And of course, because the county is the issuer of the debt, AOC provides 10% of that savings back to the county. So you'll receive a little over $50,000 we do have the approval of the administrative office of the courts for the refinancing. It meets all their criteria. We're not changing the maturity. It is simply reducing the interest rate that the bonds carry.
And the maturity is 2030, I think, isn't it, sir?
2030, that is correct, Judge.
Yeah. Okay. Squire Muller?
Thank you. How often do you all look at refi? Is it set up every so many years, or is it just because the rates are so low right now? Thank you.
Right. Good question. We obviously keep a database of all the outstanding debt of our clients. And as rates change periodically, we will look and see if there's an opportunity to refinance them. You also have the call provisions within the bonds as originally issued, which is typically 10 years. And we're right at that. We're getting very close to that threshold. So, and yes, where rates are today, it makes financial sense and meets, again, the criteria set forth by AOC to proceed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Squire Blackburn?
Thank you.
Yeah, so this just keeps the current schedule of payment maturity and lowers the interest rate and doesn't affect our bonding capacity?
That is correct, because you're the issuer on behalf of AOC in the state of Kentucky. It's actually a lease. It does not impact your capacity.
Thank you.
Squire Booth?
Do we have to pay any, does the county have to pay to have this refinance done? Is there a fee
no, ma'am.
involved? Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? As you know, Mr. Palmer, this is the work session, and we will take these items for a vote in the voting session immediately following our all the other items that are on our work session. So,
yes, sir.
We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate your work and trying to save the state money as well as securing money for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You all have a great evening.
The next item on the agenda is authorization to approve a resolution authorizing the termination of the lease agreement between the Fiscal Court and the Franklin County Humane Society for the office space located at 231 East Main. They have changed and are moving to another location to do the spay-neuter program. All right, seeing no questions. Oh, Squire Blackburn, sorry.
Yeah, I know in this lease, we kind of have an ancillary agreement to they can use this in a emergency situation with flooding. Do we currently have any plans for this building other than that fact that it's a fallback for emergency for them?
Yeah, there's some plans that are being discussed as a possible shelter for women. There's a possibility of that. But there are plans being looked at. There's no finalization of that.
Thank you.
Squire Muller. Thank you, Judge. Did we ever get any resolution on that little piece of property that the state owns? And then also, I think Mr. Hancock had talked about kind of what that corner was worth and what that building was going to take to renovate. So I didn't know if we had looked at any demolition costs or anything like that. That's a good
question. We have presented all the materials to the Secretary of Finance, and my understanding is that there will be a decision made in the real near future on that. So that's a good question. But we've done all the work that we needed to do. Squire Tracy.
Thank you, Judge. You touched on talks happening in regards to that facility. Does that mean the facility is still for sale and someone is interested in purchasing it, or?
There's a possibility. Everything is kind of up in the air right now, and I'm not able to say, well, I guess I could say that the initial part of the talks would be a lease and then possibly a purchase of the property. But everything is, there's no concrete decisions being made yet. Squire Tracy?
And with that being said, is that as is?
No. If there would, as part of the talks, COVID monies, CARES monies could be used to upgrade the building, which would not cost the county any money. And if this becomes a possible homeless shelter for women, that the CARES money could be used for that, to upgrade that building. And if so, that would include the heating and the air conditioning, which we know is the air conditioning has gone out. And it would also be split with the city. Both the city and the county CARES money could be used to upgrade that building. Squire Sebastian.
Just to follow up on that, because somebody stopped me in the grocery store and told me about this today. So I got word on the street before I got it here at the court. So the question would be, I guess from my perspective is that it would cost the county money, because some of the COVID money that we could put to other things that are important, that are equally important, we won't have those monies available if we put it into a building that we're preparing to sell. So I'm not sure why we would upgrade something that someone is in negotiations to sell. So just wondering about that, because we could utilize those funds for potentially other important things. Thank you.
Well, as you know, there is a critical need for especially women, but all of the homeless people in our community. And so I hope you're not saying that they're not in need and as I said, there's a possibility, the probability that this could be a purchase of the building, but in order to get it to the point where they can go after grant funds, these monies can be used. Now, otherwise, we would have to use our own monies to get the building to do a lot of rehab on the building to get it up to ready to be sold, or we would, because once again, for over a year and a half now, there's no air conditioning in the building. Squire Muller.
Thank you.
Judge, can I?
Squire Muller, no, hold on. Let's let Squire Muller, it's his turn.
Well, I thought we had left it that Mr. Hancock had said that was a pretty valuable corner. And then I know Jeremy's talked for years that it wouldn't be smart to sink a bunch of money into that building because there's so many problems. I mean, the homeless problem is a huge problem, but just being fiscally responsible, I don't know if it's worth putting into a building if we're going to chase our tail on it. That's all I'm saying. So.
Well, okay, let me make sure that you all understand this. Not one penny has been spent on it yet, okay? Okay, just make sure you all understand that. There are a lot of social agencies that would love to have to purchase that building. If you don't want a social agency to buy that building, then that's fine. You'll have the opportunity. Every one of you will have an opportunity to say, no, I don't want to do anything to do with the homeless. I don't want to help them. That's fine. But that hadn't come to that yet. Squire Sebastian.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that my words were very clear. I did not indicate that homelessness was not an issue. I just wanted to make sure, as I said, that there are a number of important issues that are facing our community. And so if we put money toward this, which evidently someone is talking about, because I was stopped in a Kroger today and asked about it when I had no information about it whatsoever, was really caught flat-footed about that. So this is new news to at least me. And so, as I've indicated, there are a lot of important things that we need to discuss, and it would be beneficial if we are all discussing them. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Members of the court, can I just remind you that the matter before the court is whether you're going to accept the termination of the Humane Society thing. There will be ample time to debate philosophical considerations such as how many angels dance on the head of a pin. But right now, I've not heard, nor have I been presented with any offers to sell, modify, or otherwise. So don't get too excited yet. There are a lot of problems to talk about. Today, you got one of them. That's whether you're going to accept their termination or not.
All right. Everybody got that one? This is just termination of a lease agreement. The next item is authorization to approve a resolution authorizing the filing of a grant application with the Kentucky Department of Agriculture Animal Control Advisory Board for the Spay Neuter Kentucky program on behalf of the Franklin County Humane Society. Miss Ann, I think you applied for this for them.
Well, actually, what's happened with this particular grant program in the last few years is the Humane Society still is in charge of the application, but the state has decided that it needs to flow through a local government. So that's why they get our approval for them to apply for this grant.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, seeing none, let's go to the next one. Miss Ann.
Yes, the program through the United States Department of Justice Assistance Grant Funds, or BURN grant funds, there's an allocation to the city of Frankfort each year for use of funds with that program. Because Franklin County doesn't get an allocation separately, we are entitled to share in the city of Frankfort's allocation. So several years ago, in order to keep the administration of the grant from year to year very clear and more useful actually to each of the local governments, we've alternated years in use of those funds. So this year it's our turn to use those funds. It's a little over $12,000. I've let Sheriff Quire know that money is going to be available, and he has started to gather some estimates on some equipment, radios, and some things that they need that they'll be able to utilize those grant funds for. So what our procedure is, there's a memorandum of understanding that we use with the city of Frankfort. And so we will ask you to approve and have the judge sign that memorandum of understanding in this resolution. And then I'll send that over to Rebecca Hall, and it'll be on the city's agenda next week for the city council to approve, and for the mayor to also sign that memorandum. And then we'll be able to go ahead with the application for those funds.
Question, Squire Blackburn?
Yes, on the abstract, it says $12,238, and then on the resolution itself, it says $14,294. So I'm just a little confused.
I'm sorry, that was my mistake. Used the same resolution and forgot to change the amount. The abstract is correct.
Thank you, Ann.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Ann. The next item is authorization to approve an agreement between Energy and Environment Cabinets, Kentucky Division of Forestry, and Franklin County Fire Department for participation in the Department of Defense Firefighter Program. Chief Hutcherson, welcome.
Thank you, Judge.
Yes, sir.
We're recommending entering into an agreement with the Division of Forestry, and basically what this program does, the Department of Defense Firefighting Program, it gives us the ability to request any available, well, not any, attached list available equipment from them. And if it's available and we are deemed needed, we could receive that with the stipulations of the new updated contract. Questions?
Questions, anybody?
What are we voting on? Permission for you to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Squire Blackburn?
Yes, thank you. Chief Hutcherson, have we been able to really utilize this program in the past? I know it's a great opportunity to get equipment and things like that, but has it been helpful in the past?
We have not utilized this. kind of been put by the wayside. We tried 6 years ago to get a particular piece of equipment. Were not successful, but now the rules have changed on it. The division, Kentucky Division of Forestry, actually goes out there and searches, and if they find that equipment, they notify the applicant.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Squire Sebastian?
Sorry, it just took me a second to unmute. Chief, this probably wouldn't give us the availability to find any ballistic vests, or would it? I know that was a concern of yours last year. And when Ann and Squire Booth and I went to Washington, D.C., we tried to talk to a number of contacts there about funding for ballistic vests. But I didn't know if this program would have only vehicles and certain type of trailers or other kind of equipment, or if it would include the ballistic type vests that would be universal enough that we could utilize. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I spoke to the chief ranger today for the area, Frankfurt area, and I did not ask that question. I did ask about a generator because we are definitely in the market for one of those, but there is no attached list that lists everything in detail, but I would be happy to give her a call and find out if that's one of the items that are available.
Chief Squire, this Rick, I just asked y'all to take a look at this agreement, section D, which at the beginning describes kind of the parameters under which equipment can be obtained and what kind of equipment it is. And it specifically says that it's based on cooperative plans and actions for prevention, detection, and suppression of wildlife fires and the use and care of fire equipment and tools for that purpose. I don't know how they'll ultimately rule on it, but it does refer to that purpose. Other sections refer to fire and other emergencies, but it appears that the equipment in question is designated for a single purpose.
Good.
All right, any other questions? Chief, as we look at you, you look like it's winter time with you. Look like you have earmuffs on, and
these headphones are the exact headphones that we were able to obtain, not this particular set, but that we were able to obtain through the Kentucky American Grant, and have for the last 3 years to put those on apparatus.
Gotcha. All right, no other questions. We'll move on to the next item. Thank you, Chief. The next items are board appointments. The first one is Tax Assessment Appeals Board. I'm recommending Eric Bray, who is a realtor in our, in our community. The next one is Planning Commission, John Sinners, who's with Community Trust Bank. And the third one is a nomination to the Resource Office of Social Ministry, Roslyn Board. Squire Booth, I understand you're wanting to be off of that board. Is that what I've heard?
Yes.
And so they recommend a magistrate if primarily, and if a magistrate doesn't want it, then we can look at another avenue. Is there a magistrate that wants to be on the Roslyn Board?
That's Resource Office of Social Ministries.
Yes. Squire Sebastian.
Yes, Judge. I've had a member of the community reach out to me about sitting on this board. I'm
sorry, Squire, it can't happen.
So I would just say for me personally, I know Squire Booth has indicated she didn't want to sit. I would certainly be willing to not sit, so that someone from the community who wants to step up and contribute their time, talents to the community could do so. So I'm speaking for me. Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, Squire Sebastian, but this board requires a fiscal court, somebody from fiscal court. It is not a community nomination. So it has to be number one, a magistrate, or secondarily, someone with that is part of the fiscal court. So we're not taking any nominations from the community, unfortunately, but I'm sure that Roslyn has other avenues for that. Squire, any other squires, anybody wants to be on the Roslyn board? I don't know how often they meet. Tamara, you know how often they meet?
Yes.
Once a month.
Yeah, for an hour, I believe.
Okay. Squire Sebastian.
Thank you. If none of my fellow cohorts have the time to do it, I would certainly be willing to step up and represent the court, as well as, you know, talk to other members of the community about how they could get involved, to pick up on your suggestion. Thank you very much.
Squire Blackburn.
Yeah, I was just wondering what time they met, because I would definitely consider it as well.
They,
Around noon. Is that right,
Yes.
Squire Booth?
yes. They give you lunch, okay?
That would be kind of hurt you, Squire Blackburn, when you, if not when, but if you get back to school in a normal fashion. But I appreciate you being interested in it.
Oh, me too.
Squire Blackburn, are you okay with of acquiescing to Squire Sebastian to
Absolutely.
All right. Everybody okay with now, let me say this, you have to pass, they have to vote on you, but it is not, it's just, we're going to send your name as the nominee from the fiscal court. And I think that's perfunctory, but that's their process, not ours. That's what they say. Okay. So thank you, Squire Sebastian, for volunteering to be on this board. Now, are there any questions about Tax Assessment Appeals Board? Squire Muller.
I was just curious, how many people turn applications in for this board?
One.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Planning Commission. Questions on Planning Commission? Squire Blackburn.
Oh, yeah, the same question that Squire Muller had. I'd like to know how many people applied for this board position as well.
2. Squire Booth.
I want to put in a word for Brent Swager. I know that he applied, and he has been on an organization that really dovetails with the comprehensive plan.
Squire Booth, he's not a nominee. I'm not nominating him.
Okay. But he's the best choice.
Well, he's not being nominated. Any other questions? Thank you. All right. Next item is authorization to receive the treasurer's report. Squire Tracy.
Sorry, Judge, just one quick question about the last agenda item, if I may. What set this applicant apart from the other individual that showed interest, if I may?
In which way are you talking?
What swayed this one to be?
I'm talking about, are you talking about Planning Commission or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Mr. Centers has for a long time has asked me, could he serve on a board? And when he saw this opening, he sent his application in and said, I'd love to be on this board. And so I know Mr. Centers. I know Squire Sebastian knows him very well too. He's in the banking industry, and that's why I picked him. He's been wanting to be either on this board or another board for quite a while.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Ms. Susan, you want to talk about the treasurer's report?
I'll just comment that the report that I included in the packet was a preliminary for our fiscal year end, fiscal year 20. And as we have been talking and indicating all along, that we would end with a significant excess for the fiscal year. It looks like it'll be about close to $1.3 million that will carry over into our fund balance. Now, I want to make a quick comment here. Again, we have obligations that just because of the timing of the projects or the timing of the services or materials did not come to fruition during that fiscal year. So we have some obligations against that money, but because we're on a cash basis, we would have had to rebudget them. The biggest one being the repair of the fire truck. The timing of that was delayed because of the emergency. So we've got that in the bills tonight to be paid, and that will show as a fiscal year 21 expense that we did not budget for of $122,000-ish. Same thing with one of our grants due to the timing of the and delay of the event. The bill didn't come in time to get covered in the last fiscal year, so we'll be booking that in the current fiscal year. So there are always these kinds of things. But those are, in particular, the insurance proceed item is the most significant. So we will have some obligations that we'll have to fulfill when we amend the budget to cover some line items that we already know about. But otherwise, it will be a good report. I'll have a final report for you for the year end with our filed with the Department of Local Government by the time of our next court meeting that we will have, but I'm still in the process of closing. And then we didn't have everything booked for the current fiscal court. So you need to rely on your court bill report, which you have for what's being paid. But you can see, as always, our first court, because we are in a good cash position, it enables Franklin County to take advantage of discounts by being able to pay up front or pay on favorable terms for our insurance. So with 1% savings, I think that's an excellent opportunity when we're only getting, maybe 0.25% on some of the interest we're earning. So we pay our insurance in one lump sum by August 1st, and we get that 1% discount versus and doing 2 installments, which is the only other option, which means you still have to pay it by November 1st. So it really doesn't save you any time use of your money there. So it's better to take the discount. So, that, as you can see, that's maybe close to $800,000 worth of our bills tonight are those payments that we'll be sending out. And again, that is typical for this time of the year. I will comment that I sit in on a training yesterday with KCO. They are doing some virtual trainings, and there were comments and just basically one of the main guidance that they're giving is for you to do, monitor your revenues in accordance with your own account trends. And our software does provide a easy revenue comparison for a 5-year trend and expense comparison for 5-year trends by months. So we will have the opportunity as our tax receipts come in for that comparison. As the clerk reported in his quarterly report, he said revenues are good. And in fact, his motor vehicles at 62,000 that we received in July, which is for June's payments versus $42,000 for the same period last year, as well as the deed transfer taxes were up for the same period last year. So we will continue to be monitoring those comparisons and those values. The occupational tax administrator just completed, well, she's not complete by any means. The mail stacked up because yesterday was the IRS deadline. So for the filing for the net profits. And then on top of that, it's the end of the quarter ending 6/30. So by 7/31, mainly by the first week in August, we'll have a picture of where our payroll is, and we can do some sample comparisons with some of our industries to see what that probably most horrible quarter of the world looked like. And we already have, seen some of the impact for the state payroll, but we'll continue to monitor that individually. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But that's what we have for tonight.
Squire Sebastian.
Not a question, but just I want to echo what our treasurer said, because I too participated in this conference. And as I had noted during our budget discussions, all the trainings I'm going to do in this fiscal year, I'm paying for out of my pocket to assist the county. But I thought that was a very enlightening point that they made about the quarter of pain that we're about to have. So they told us really to hang on to cash. And I think our treasurer said that very clearly. If they said that once, they said that 10 times during that meeting. Hang on to our cash, look at ways, and definitely do not get into discretionary spending, because no one has the crystal ball to determine what we will be able to handle in this year going forward and how things will be. So I just wanted to echo our treasurer's comments because they were very clear. Thank you.
Okay, Susan, you want to talk about other business? I mean, payment of bills. I apologize. Payment of bills.
Oh, Judge.
Yes.
Excuse me for interrupting you, but I got a letter from the Department of Local Government, which I guess all of us got, about, and I don't understand it.
Well, Squire, why don't you hold on to that? Let's do payment of bills and let's put that in other business, okay?
Okay.
All right. Let's, Susan, do you want to talk about, are there any questions with Susan about payment of bills? Squire Muller.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Susan, for everything you do. Question, Susan, there's a number 09-94400-041. It says fire dues for $775. What exactly is that?
Our firefighters participate in an association, and they have money withheld from their paychecks for fire dues. I'm not sure what you're looking at. I think you're probably looking at the payroll vendor bills under the recurring, probably under the recurring payments. Those are disbursements from our employees' funds. So we're just remitting funds that we've held for them on their behalf, and then we send them out monthly to the respective organizations or vendors related to their choices.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I don't remember seeing that before, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. Next item is other business. Is there any other business before the court?
Besides that letter I brought up?
Yes, go right on, Squire Booth. What is the letter that you're?
Well, it says that it's an annual thing. About consumer price index.
What's the date on it, Squire?
January 28th, 2020.
Well, yeah, that came out last year. 6 months ago. That was.
Well, that's when I had my accident. I'm sorry. Bring that up.
Okay, Squire Moore.
Yes. Last fall we talked about, and happily we didn't do it, putting the burden on people that didn't meet a certain threshold in their health assessments, or I don't remember the whole thing about it, but I just wanted to ask Betty Jo, where would we be today if we had have done that, put that $50 fee on people that didn't meet that threshold?
Betty, are you online? Betty Jo?
Yes, I am.
Okay, can you answer that question?
I am. We'd be in big trouble right now due to COVID-19.
Yeah,
I could say that we did put that in place. A lot of employees would be paying the $50 because they could not get their biometrics or could do the other activities to receive points.
You mean $50 a month?
Yes, ma'am.
Was, but we
Oh,
we knocked
wow.
it down. So, okay, I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank
Okay.
you, Lambert.
Okay,
One more.
anything else in other business?
Judge,
Okay,
if I could follow up just briefly on that issue with Squire Marty, and I wanted to let her know that I think that to answer that question, she'll contact the treasurer. That's the CPI letter that I think all officials got back in January. I didn't want to you not know what the remedy is on that.
But
'Cause
it
that can be
doesn't
confusing.
really apply to us. It just informs us.
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
because a lot of the things you're going to be doing is based upon CPI, et cetera. And I'm not looking at that letter, but I got a similar one to certify it. And you
Yeah.
may want to contact the treasurer. Susan can answer that real quick.
Well, it was pretty high, 2.3%. I thought, yeah. 2.3%. Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
I guess.
So I just didn't want to leave you hanging.
Okay.
okay. Any constitutional officers or department head that wants to report? Speak up. Seeing none, hearing none.
Judge,
Squire,
Judge.
hold on, I'm hearing somebody. Who is that that's asking for judge? I don't know.
It's Jay.
All right, Jake, go ahead. You're first. You got in first.
The magistrates asked me to update them on the work programs.
Okay.
DOC has asked us to put together a comprehensive plan to get people back out to work. And then they've asked us to get with our health department. And I've asked the Class D coordinators and chief deputy to put something together. That plan has been put together. We have 15 work sites. We're only going to probably get 2 out because of the restrictions. They can't be around people. So they've asked to send out the state highway crew picking up trash that will only be around our officers and our mowing crew. We submitted that the first of the week, and we look forward to hearing back from that to see if we're going to be able to do that. When I hear, I will let you know. I just want to share that with you because you asked me, the magistrates asked me to keep them updated with that. So that's where we're at.
Good.
Thank you. We want to know too. That's great. Squire Sebastian.
The jailer beat me to it, and I'm so happy to hear that. I appreciate that so much. Thank you, Jailer Bonta. And then
You're
certainly, I really do appreciate that. And certainly, Judge, if you have anything to share with us, please feel free.
I just gave you 28 items to talk about, so I'm good.
Judge, I'd like to make a report on that COVID litigation that's been addressed by the governor's office on the executive orders.
Okay, go ahead.
As y'all know, the governor, and in my opinion, much late in the game, finally ordered masks to be worn in public places. There's been some pending litigation on it, and I just want to remind everybody that number one, do we really need to be told to wear masks? Should have been doing it anyway. Number two, those rules remain in place that in any public place, mask or face covering are required to prevent the further spread of COVID. That's still pending. If people have heard anything about any actions or any final decisions, et cetera, that's not the case. It remains the rule and the right thing to do. So just wanted to clarify and ask everybody and remind them to wear their mask, not for them, for everybody else. It ain't gonna hurt anything. So thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Squire Muller.
Yeah, I was going to bring up just a committee report. We had a park meeting the other day with the judge and Tambra and Squire Tracy there, and we talked about various things and how the park is opening up and things we can open and things we cannot open. I thought it went well. I think Charlie's doing a great job there trying to get us through this whole thing. I just want to let everybody be aware that there is a survey on our social media as far as I think Squire Tracy had the idea of doing a drive-in movie. So I just want to throw that out to everybody. If that's something you think you'd be interested in, if you look up the fiscal court page on social media and give us your input. We would greatly appreciate it. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, that is on our page. Any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, the next item is authorization to go into closed session, KRS 61.810, Section 1, Section F, for personnel discussion, which might lead to the appointment of an individual employee, which will be done back in the voting session. All right, so that will be done. I apologize. That will be done in the
After the voting session?
after the voting session. All right, so at this point in time, let's now go into the voting session. And clerk, would you call the roll?
Yes. Squire Sebastian.
Are you
Here.
Yeah, thank you.
Squire Black.
Yes, but I have a question. Judge, there are some additional items on here. Do we need to cover any of those in the vote before we go into the voting session? Just asking.
No.
So the authorization to hire the firefighter, we don't need to vote on that?
We're going into closed session.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Squire Blackburn.
Yeah.
Squire Blackburn.
Present.
Squire Muller.
Present.
Squire Tracy.
Here.
Squire Booth.
Present.
Squire Moore.
Counted for right here.
Judge Wells.
Here, would you please stand for the pledge? Lead us, and Squire Booth, will you lead us in the pledge tonight?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag.
to
To the flag.
the flag.
United States of America.
Yeah, somebody else got taken over from me. I had a hematoma on my brain.
Okay.
Flag of the United States of America.
America, and to the republic
Republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice
for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Squire Booth, for your effort. Thank you. Okay, the first item on the agenda is authorization for approval of minutes from our regular meeting of June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Did you get that? Did you get who?
Squire Moore made the motion. Squire Muller made the second.
Okay, discussion? Call the roll?
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes, next item is authorization to receive the county clerk's quarterly report for the quarter ending June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
move.
Squire Blackburn,
I second.
seconded by Squire Booth.
Okay.
Discussion? Call the roll?
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to receive the sheriff's 2019 tax collection settlement for collections period of May 1st, 2019 through May 31st, 2020.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Did you get that?
Squire Moore made the motion. Squire Sebastian second.
Okay. Call the roll?
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a contract extension and amendment. I'm sorry, I thought I heard someone say. Next item is authorization to approve a contract extension and amendment number 7 to Southern Health Partners Agreement with the jail.
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
Okay, Squire Blackburn. Discussion? Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes, I would like to explain my vote on this. So we have before us amendment number 7 to an agreement that has been in place since 2009 for 24-hour healthcare at the Franklin County Regional Jail. It continues to be a bit troublesome for me that this contract has not been bid out since that, or I think maybe has been bid out once since that time. But it's also troubling that the agreement before the court this evening contains some vague language that would be important regarding reasonable effort on the part of the contract vendor for staffing levels, and also breach of contract for the vendor. So as a result, I'm going to have to vote no on this contract amendment, and would urge the court to consider the implications that approving this amendment could leave the county burdened with. Thank you for the opportunity to vote and to explain my vote.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
I look forward to the jailer bidding this out next year. I think that's the right thing to do. Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yeah, I agree with Jailer Bonner. There are some parts of the contract extension that need to be tightened up, and I would like to see him work to get those tightened up. But with that being said, I'll vote yes.
Squire Booth,
I agree with Squire Sebastian on the vague language. And if we cannot have a report on how this contract is being used, it makes it even worse. So I vote no.
Squire Moore,
I'm going to take counselor's advice on the vagueness and say yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. Next item is authorization to accept Peaks Mill Water District's audit report for years ended December 31st, 2019 and 2018.
So move.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Tracy made the motion, Squire Muller,
Yep.
second.
Yes.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a resolution of the fiscal court of the County of Franklin, Kentucky, adopting certain guidelines and procedures in connection with compliance with Rule 15C2-12 of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
I'll move.
I second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a resolution of the fiscal court of the County of Franklin, Kentucky, authorizing the execution of a lease agreement with the Franklin County, Kentucky Public Properties Corporation in the Kentucky Administrative Office of the Courts, authorizing the execution of any other instruments necessary to carry out a plan of financing the cost of refunding all or a portion of the corporation's first mortgage revenue bonds, Justice Center Project, Series 2011B and 2011A, and evidencing the agreement of the county to accept a conveyance of the Justice Center from the Franklin County, Kentucky Public Properties Corporation after the retirement of all bonds issued by said corporation to finance said refunding. With all that being
So
said,
moved.
it's really a refinancing of the bonds.
Second.
So moved.
I'm sorry.
All right, Squire Sebastian and then Squire Moore.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Since this is no cost to the county to refinance, and it will result in a at least $50,000 added to our budget, I vote a resounding yes.
Squire Moore,
This saves the state possibly around $500,000 and will bring in $50,000 to the state, to the county. I say
Yeah.
yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a resolution approving the holding of a public hearing by the fiscal court of the county of Owen, Kentucky, on behalf of Franklin County relating to the refinancing by Owen County of facilities for Kentucky American Water Company and American Water Capital Corporation.
So moved.
Second.
I think, okay, Squire
Let
Booth.
Blackburn have it.
Squire Booth, you got it. You're fine. We heard you. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
I say to Owen County, be careful what you ask for. Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a resolution authorizing the termination of the lease agreement between Franklin County Fiscal Court and the Franklin County Humane Society for office space located at 231 East Main Street.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Sebastian, I think. Squire Sebastian. Okay, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. Next item is authorizing to approve a resolution authorizing the county judge executive to execute a memorandum of understanding with the city of Frankfort for use of the Justice Assistance Grants. Okay, I'm sorry, but sorry, I'll go back to number 11. I apologize. I had marked the wrong one. The next item is authorization to approve a resolution authorizing the filing of a grant application with the Kentucky Department of Agriculture Animal Control Advisory Board for the Spay Neuter Kentucky program on behalf of the Franklin County Humane Society. I apologize.
I so move.
Second.
Blackburn, second. Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. The next item is authorization to approve a resolution authorizing the county judge executive to execute a memorandum of understanding with the city of Frankfort for use of justice assistance grant funds.
So moved.
Seconded by Squire Blackburn. Okay. Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve an agreement between Energy and Environment Cabinet, Kentucky Division of Forestry, and the Franklin County Fire Department for participation in the Department of Defense firefighter program.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Okay, Sebastian and Moore. Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. The next item is authorization to approve appointment of Eric Bray to the Franklin County Tax Assessment Appeals Board for a term ending December 31st, 2023, replacing Mary Talby, who has served for several terms on the board. And we appreciate her serving on this board.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
I'm going to just make a statement and then proceed to vote. I really think I want to take this opportunity to encourage members of our community to submit applications for board service. They are important extensions of county government, and our neighbors need your time and your talents to Franklin County achieve all of its potential. I'll continue to encourage you to step forward. And because I truly believe that service to your fellow, man is the best work that you will ever do. So with that, I vote yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
I agree with Squire Sebastian, except that it's service to fellow men and women. Okay, I vote yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve the appointment of John Centers to the Franklin County Planning Commission Board for a term ending June 30th, 2024, replacing Joyce Honaker. And Joyce said she did not want to be reappointed, and we appreciate Joyce for her services on the Planning Commission. She's done a great job.
I'll so move.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
I'll just explain this. It sounds like I had two constituents who really wanted to do this service, and I think they would have been great appointments, either one. So I'm going to say yes.
Squire Blackburn,
I'd like to explain my vote. If you didn't know either one of these people and you looked at their qualifications, we got a guy that, or an individual that actively served on the comp plan update committee during the last full update. They voluntarily served on the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Adjustments. They were the lead manager author of the Bike Ped Master Plan for Franklin County in 2007 and 2016. Was a lead in the committee that wrote the new zoning category that for the redevelopment of downtown. Also led the effort to reduce parking requirements for commercial uses in Franklin County. And we have a banker that wants to serve. I'm bewildered by this choice. I vote no.
Squire Muller,
I just want to say I appreciate John's willingness to serve on the board. I know currently he's on 3 different boards, which is a lot. So I'm a no.
Squire Tracy,
I know we all realize how important board appointments are. I'm concerned that if Mr. Center is appointed, other boards that he currently participates on will be in front of the Planning Commission lobbying for zone changes.
Now,
In
let
no
me
way,
remind you
in
that he will resign from those other boards.
in no way would I want Mr. Center to be put in an uncomfortable position that could have been avoided. With that, I vote no.
Squire Booth,
I vote no.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells,
It's interesting. You've asked people to sign up to be on committees. 2 people signed up. I picked one and you voted them down. And that's pretty sad. That's hugely sad.
No, it's not.
That's the way you're going to do it. Plus, the one that you obviously want has already served on it. And so you've gotten after me for picking people and reappointing people. And this person's already been on there. It was appointed by the city at one time. And so I went with somebody that really wanted to be part of it, and you vote them down. You have not sent a very good message to this community to please apply for a board and we'll vote you down.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. I absolutely vote yes. And I apologize to Mr. Centers that we have put him through that. Okay, the next item is authorization to approve the nomination of Sherry Sebastian to the Resource Office of Social Ministries Rosin Board as a representative of the Fiscal Court, replacing Squire Marty Booth.
So moved.
What?
Second.
Second.
Where is she?
Squire Sebastian?
Have we lost Squire Sebastian?
Yes, Squire Sebastian's not with us. I don't know if she's having technical difficulties or not, Judge, but she is not with us currently.
Okay. Well, let's vote anyway. I'm anxious to get this done.
Well, hold on, Squire, please.
Okay,
It's only fair that we try to get Squire Sebastian back.
yes.
Andrew, are you helping her in any way you can?
I just texted her, Judge, but I mean, she hasn't reached out to me yet. Yes, she's having some technical difficulties and she is going to try to reconnect.
Okay.
Hey, Rick, is it okay if she just calls in, worst case? You know, she might have her phone available if the video's not working.
I think she's going to try to maybe do that as a backup option, but she's coming in right now. So
Oh,
You,
good.
you, a quorum was established at the time that the first roll was taken. So the quorum issue is not the same, but if she's trying to get on, I mean, take your time. I'm sure she's not gonna be able to vote on this one though, of course. Or she might vote. She might vote. I don't know. Maybe she knows a lot about the candidate, so she might not be willing to vote in favor of herself on this.
She might be against it.
She might be against it. Yeah, so, but as far as the quorum's concerned, you're good. But it's not gonna hurt anything to wait, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, so she can't vote on herself, I guess, then. Is that what you're saying?
No, sir. She wouldn't be able to vote.
All right, well, let's just go on and finish that one up then. Authorization to approve the nomination of Sherry Sebastian to the Resource Office of Social Ministry, the Rosin Board, as a representative of the Fiscal Court, replacing Squire Marty Booth.
I've got Squire Moore as making the motion and Squire Booth as making the second.
This will be continued on them and approving her, right?
Yes, contingent upon their approval.
she's back, Judge.
I'm back.
Okay,
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
I would first like to thank Squire Booth for her service on the board, and I appreciate Squire Sebastian stepping up. So yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes, and again, yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
yes. Next item is authorization to receive the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is the payment of bills. Is there a motion offered to deny any payment of any of the bills? Seeing none, bills are to be paid. The next item is authorization to go into closed session, KRS 61.810, Section 1, Section F, personnel discussion, which might lead to the appointment of an individual employee. No action will be taken in closed session. The Frankfurt Planning Board, we ask that you stop the live broadcast, and then we will come back into, I'll let you know when we come back into open session. Okay, we're back into open session. The item on the agenda is authorization to hire firefighter. Kyle Aldridge is a firefighter.
So moved.
Second.
Who did the second, Muller?
Muller. Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. The next item and the last item, authorization to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Squire Tracy. Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Before I say yes, I want to remind everybody, please fill out your census if you have not done that. Please, your census. And last but not least, wear a mask. With that,
Here, here.
yes, and we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Y'all take care. Be safe.